Welcome to Mercy's Designs. My name is Mercy and I sell Stampin' Up! Products. In today's class I would like to show you how I made this easel card. This is in landscape form. A lot of them are in portrait form, so it would be this way. But this one is in landscape. So I like to do is create a pattern for myself. And I don't use Stampin' Up! Paper for this, just some that I had left over from scrapbooking, etc. So right here, this kind of explains how it really works. So it's a typical 5.5 by 8.5 base, and you score it down the center at 4 1/4, and then you do half of this distance, which is 2 1/8. So it will look like this. This is your mountain fold, valley fold. And then here is your stopper, and you can vary this measurements a little bit. You can make it narrower or you can make it deep like this one. This is be about as deep as I would make it because you want it to be able to fold pretty nicely. So this is how it would look if I were to assemble this. So as you can see, you don't want it much more than that because you want it to be able to tilt nicely. The other thing I wanted to mention is I do add a little extra paper down here, and that's just for weight because it has a tendency to want to spring up and not catch. So I will set that aside. The stamp sets that I used are painted glass, and these are the DSP. I just have that there. I also use the stained glass thinlits and the Along stamp set, which is retiring, and Hummingbird framelits. And I thought this was a beautiful combination, painted glass and Humming Along. Really kind of complement each other in my opinion. So I will start with coloring a little bit. So here's my scratch paper. I did most of the things with heat embossing. So I decided I won't show that part because I don't want to make this video too long, but I do want to show a few of the things. So for this card, we're going to do slightly different colors. I did the first one, the pink part would be Lovely Lipstick. So this one I am going to do with the dark Flirty Flamingo, or both actually. So what I'd like to do is do a little bit of on the chest here, and then here. And you can kind of adjust as you go, and then continue in here. Then I will bring in the lighter color, and I want to kind of just continue that, and we will get rid of any harsh lines. So what I mean harsh lines is I like to use the fine tip in. I'll just show this a little bit and kind of do a little bit of a chicken scratch just to smooth it out. So you can see it's much more blended. Then we will bring in our Crumb Cake. This is the light Crumb Cake. And I want to have most of the head with the Crumb Cake. I want it much more subtle than it would. And these colors actually blend pretty well, surprisingly. I'm going to use this one again, but I just want to do the beak in a darker color. So I'll just quickly do that before I forget. And then I do a little bit more of the Crumb Cake. So I'm going to come over here, quickly color a little bit there and there. And I think that's all for the Crumb Cake that we need. Next, I wanted to show a little bit about the blue. So I kind of like to vary the colors on the blue for the wings. This one will have a lot less blue than my original card, but blue is a good transitional color. This is the, I want to start with the dark actually. I used to always like go light, dark, light, but nowadays I just start with the dark and go straight to the light. And that way I sometimes do not need to go back over too much. So what I'm doing here is just hitting the blue every other little area here on the wings. And I'm doing just kind of the top and bottom. So Here we go. If the wing is divided, all the better. It all comes out pretty well. You don't have to be too concerned or spend too much time with this part, in my opinion. So the next part would be to go with your light Balmy Blue and fill in the colors. Now I won't do all the coloring here because it will take too much time, but I do want to show some of the things that I kind of added to this, more or less, that may be a little bit different. Now this is Night of Navy, and this is a much, much darker color, but I sometimes really do enjoy some good contrast. So don't be afraid to mix different colors, even sometimes in different families, like I showed just with the Flirty Flamingo and the Crumb Cake. So now I'm going to bring back in my Balmy Blue Dark and just fill in here. And it actually blends further in a couple minutes. So I'm not too concerned about any harsh lines, but if you are concerned, don't go with the darker, obviously, to blend. Go with your lightest of the two colors, and you can kind of do this whole little chicken scratch, as I called it, just to soften those lines, and it'll help spread that color out. So I'll just show this real quick, and you can see. Now, the other colors I used were the Mossy Meadow and Daffodil Delight. So that is probably all the coloring I'll do for now, because I do have one already prepared, and we will just jump right in with assembling the card. So here is my base, and this is the Flirty Flamingo. And again, it's kind of like, what type of card would this be? Anyway, maybe even a sort of the gatefold format, but you can kind of see. So we will quickly, I cut this down, and the dimensions for this is the typical matting dimension, which it would be like 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And I will have all those dimensions listed in my description below. And this DSP is the Floral Romance, which will be going out and no longer available as supplies last. So it could be sooner than later and it won't be available, but technically the June 4th is the very last time it will be available, and it's a beautiful set. It also has vellum on it in the packet, and it is a specialty, so it's a slightly higher price point. Okay, so that is where it will go, but for now I think I will go ahead and add our stopper. And actually, I take that back. I will go ahead and add this panel but before I do that, I will go ahead and add this trellis. This is part of the framelits from the, what is it? The glass. So what I did here was just kind of show some of that stitching. I used the rectangle stitch dies, and I cut down here. Now, obviously here you're going to not have it showing. So what I did is I just kind of tried to do a little bit of miter cutting here, so it's as close to that as possible. So obviously I don't think I can use that again. I'll just discard that. But you're not going to see it nearly as much at the bottom as you would if you did your cut up here. So the next step would be to go ahead and adhere this, and I like to go ahead and use this panel to glue onto, but just make sure that you realize you're leaving a bit of a border, so you don't want to go crazy and add glue every part of this. But it's easy enough to just allow for that little border. Okay, so next I'm going to put it down and see, I'm not quite getting that the way I want it. See, yeah, it's a little, that's pretty good though. You have a little bit of time to adjust it if you use, an adequate amount of glue. All right, so here is our hummingbird, And isn't that just beautiful? I love this Humming Along set. I'm so sad that it's going away, but it's one of the sets that I'm going to hang on to. And I will probably continue to use it for personal cards because hummingbirds are just so beautiful and amazing. I cannot get enough of them. And I really am sad this is retiring because it would have been a perfect stamp set to go with the mosaic stamp set. And for some reason that wasn't coming out. So I just want to have it so it's looking at the trellis. And I will bring in our roses that I've already colored. This one was with Daffodil Delight, and these, of course, with Flirty Flamingo. So I will go ahead and attach these. Now, I am putting the two colors top and bottom. I know it's a little bit every other, but it's okay with me. And you want to put it towards the top because this isn't the full length trellis, if you will. I don't even know if it's really a trellis, but I'm calling it a trellis. It works. It's actually probably for a stained glass window, but for my purposes, it's a trellis because that's the look I'm kind of going for. And then down here, you just center lower part. I love these roses. They're just so adorable. This whole set is really beautiful. So then we just put this center. And then we will now work on our stopper. Now I've gone ahead and put backing on it. Sometimes I do like using this foam strips instead of the dimensionals if it's a lot of space. So something to have, it's nice to have in your stash. Crafting, and I'm just leaving a very small border here. So probably it's like a 1/16 of an inch. And ta-da. Now, it kind of can sometimes not hold down, and if you're concerned about that, which I won't do for the sake of time, is you can go ahead and add a piece of panel, like a white cardstock or something, and it will add some weight. But in this case, I think it's actually, oh, there it goes, flipped up, but I might add it later on. But I just wanted to point that out, that you can do that. So I will now do a tiny bit of stamping. Very little is necessary because I didn't want to take the time to stamp and emboss all of this because there was quite a bit. Here's my Mossy Meadow, and I have a scrap of Whisper White cardstock, and this thank you sentiment is from the Humming Along, and it's just beautiful. So go ahead and stamp this, and you want to give it a little bit time to dry. So sometimes I rush in and go ahead and punch it, and it definitely kind of, this is the story label, it can kind of smear. So hopefully I'm not rushing it here. I'm just going to go in and try to center this as best as I can. When you are not using a photopolymer, it's definitely a good idea to go ahead and stamp first. And then I'm going to layer with Flirty Flamingo. I also recommend sticking with a limited color palette so that you get the most impact. If you do lots of different colors, sometimes it can get too busy. I really like this combination. It's similar to what the DSP suggested on the Floral Romance, but in that case they used Petal Pink. I just wanted something slightly brighter. So I replaced it with this gorgeous Flirty, not Flirty, it's the, yeah, I guess it is the Flirty Flamingo. Let me just double check this. Sometimes, yeah, it's dark Flirty Flamingo. Oh, Flirty Flamingo. I looked at the blends marker and I immediately called out whatever it was written. Anyhow, but my point is I just changed it slightly, which obviously this is more intense. And you just, if you're using the liquid glue, you can easily manipulate it until you get it just the right amount of border for matting. Okay, so next I'm just going to add dimensionals. With my first one I didn't add dimensionals and I kind of regretted that. So we're going to go ahead, dimension this to the max because why not? This card is going to be a special card. it could also, I could have used the framelit, which they have this beautiful framelit for the wishing you an amazing birthday on this too. So if you want, you can change it out. Okay, I think we're done with the dimensionals. So here you could do it this, I'm just going to try to make sure I'm in the center. Do this way, or you can do it this way. I kind of feel like I'm going to repeat kind of what I did before and just add it like here. And I like this leaf like it's floating to the ground. So there we go. And here it is. So I do think I will add that little extra panel, but you get the idea. You could mail it. It will fit in a standard envelope, and you could write a note on the back. But I really love this card and hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. If you would like to order any products, please email me at mewants3@gmail.com, and I would be happy to help you order with a host code. Thanks so much for watching, and happy stamping.